should be followed throughout your semester. Point number 1, your everyday session is planned for 60 minutes. I'll be posting corresponding links to attend your Google Class Meet. You please check your classrooms, or else I'm going to post these links in your WhatsApp groups. Please try to be regular in checking your mails and classroom details, and please be on time to the class. As a second point, your attendance will be automatically recorded. During this time, your overall attendance time in everyday session should be minimum more than 40 minutes. Then only you will be marked present. As a third point, in the last 10 to 12 minutes of everyday session, a quiz assignment will be conducted. Quiz questions will be given based on the topic that we discussed in every particular session. So be conscious and focus towards every class and try to get more marks. Last point, very important point, to avoid unwanted disturbances, I request all of you to mute your audios and videos during the class. However, you can post your questions through the chat box. I can devote my time at the end of the session to clarify your doubts. So now, without any further delay, let us get into our today's session. So today we are going to talk about Unit 1, Session 1, that is Introduction to Semiconductor Physics, Insulators, Semiconductors and Conductors. Let us have a look of the today's overview, timetable, syllabus. Anyways, lecture on Unit 1, Session 1. I'm going to recommend some basic books for you for your future reference. So let us see the timetable. So these are the two timetables assigned for A section and B section. Okay, I'm going to club both your sessions for the convenience. If you see the times of both the sessions, they are almost same except Saturday afternoon session. So you can find your Google Meet links in your WhatsApp group or your classroom. So there, I hope there won't be any clashes, but you see your timetable, attend your classes accordingly. And I'll be posting a timetable in your classroom. Please do check your timetable and try to join the class. So now let us see the syllabus before start our class. So you'll be basically having 6 units. Unit 1 deals with semiconductor physics. Unit 2 deals with junction diode characteristics. Unit 3 deals with rectifiers and filters. Unit 4 is about transistor characteristics. Unit 5, transistor biasing and thermal stabilization. And last unit deals with small signal low frequency transistor amplifier models. So now, these are the contents that are included in each unit. Okay, have a look over here. Anyways, I'll be sharing the syllabus in classroom. You can check your syllabus over there also. So this is the whole syllabus that is assigned for this particular course, BEAD. If you see the syllabus, it looks very big, but it is very, very simple, interesting, and it is very important for your career. This particular subject will come in many competitive exams like GATE, IETs, etc. So please be focused. Gaining marks only, it is not sufficient. No, you have to think about your future. So this particular course is very important for many competitive exams. Okay, if we see the diagram, so in Unit 1, we are going to discuss about many bonds and etc., which may discuss about semiconductor physics. Okay, now these are the few basic books you can refer. J. Millman, Electronic Devices and Circuits. Okay, so if you want, I can share those books, soft copies. Now let us switch to our whiteboard. Okay, I'm using one digital platform to convey information. I hope I can able to convey information properly. So this is the whiteboard that I'm going to use. So the course name is Basic Electronic Devices. Today we are going to discuss about Introduction to Semiconductor Physics. while the course is happening, the class is going on, if you have any queries during the session, you can note the questions and you can post it on the chat box. At the end of the session, I will be able to clarify all the doubts. If you are confused with any of the topic, or if you are unable to understand any of the topics that I am discussing here, just feel free to ask me. I'm ready to clarify your doubts. Okay. Okay. Now let's start the class. Now, as you know, if you talk about the semiconductor physics, that means we are thinking about matter, right? So if you see the matter, so all matters are made up of atoms. If you see the atoms, all atoms consist of electrons, protons, and neutrons. Okay. So now, let me take one pointer here. Matter holds atoms, right? Atoms consists of electrons, protons, and neutrons. Okay. So every atom consists of electrons, protons, and neutrons. Okay. So if we talk about few important parameters of all this, what should we do? So we have to discuss about few important points, right? So let us draw a table here, which may discusses about few important parameters of electrons, protons, and neutrons. So here, important points which we are going to discuss about: name of the scientist, then what is the charge that has, then magnitude of charge, then mass of all these three. One important point here, please be focused on your class, because at the end of the session you will have a quiz examination. So I have already saved your questions on your classroom. So I'm going to assign it at the end of this session. So please be concentrated on every single point. You'll be awarded with 10 questions out of this class. Okay. So please be focused throughout the class. Now, if you take electrons, okay. So who is the scientist that discovered the electrons? J.J. Thomson, right? As we know, J.J. Thomson is the scientist who discovered and observed the electrons. And for protons, Goldstein. And for neutrons, Chadwick. So now if you talk about the charge of an electron, so electrons will have negative charge, protons will have positive charge, neutrons will have no charge. So now if we, what are the units for charge? Units for charge is coulombs. Now if you see the magnitude of charge for electron, it is 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. Then what about the magnitude charge of proton? The proton charge carries positive charge, which is equals to the magnitude of an electron. Okay, so in that case, only sign varies between electron and proton, but the magnitude of proton will be same as electron, which is 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. Since there is no charge for neutron, no need to mention here. Now, another important factor in this topic is mass of electron, mass of proton and neutron. What is the mass of electron? Generally, mass of an electron is denoted by E suffix capital M. M denotes for mass, E for electrons. Mass of an electron is equals to 9.11 into 10 power minus 31 10 power minus 31 kg. Okay. Then what is the mass of a proton? The mass of the proton is denoted by P suffix capital M, which is equals to 1.673 into 10 power minus 27 kg. In other words, it can be defined as the mass of the proton is 1836 times of mass of electron. Okay, so we can define the mass of the proton in two terminologies. Then now let's see what is the mass of a neutron. So the mass of the neutron is generally equal to the mass of the proton. So now what is that? 1.673 into 10 power minus 27 kg. So these are the few points that we need to discuss and need to remember, because these are the few basic important points everybody should remember. Okay, I hope it is clear. Now let's see what is meant by nucleus and where is it located. Okay, all those points can be discussed here. Okay. Now, what is nucleus? Now we are going to see about nucleus, right? Generally, every atom consists of a nucleus which may carry a positive energy proton and a neutron at its center. For example, so it will be denoted like this. This is your nucleus. Around this, we can draw one circle like this. This circle is called orbit. So on the orbit, generally, electron will be presented. Here, electrons will be presented. So these electrons will move in the orbit, which is located at a certain distance from the nucleus. So now we can say this is our nucleus, this is our orbit, and this is all about nucleus and so on. Okay, like this, there will be number of orbits around the nucleus of any atom. Okay, you might have understood what is meant by nucleus. Nucleus is the center point of any atom which will hold positive charge proton and a neutron at its center, and around that orbit will be given where electron will be moving in the orbit, which is displayed with a certain distance from the nucleus. Okay. Now, after that, let us see what is meant by energy level. So what is the next topic? Our next topic is energy level. Energy level. Let us understand energy levels of each orbit. If we take each orbit from the nucleus, it corresponds to certain energy level. For example, I will tell you. So the electron in each orbit will have some fixed amount of energy. Okay. If we draw its pictorial representation along with the energy levels diagram, see here. So I have my nucleus here. So I have drawn some orbits over here. So now, my first, sorry. Sorry, ma. Have some issue. This marker suddenly. Okay, fine. So from here to here, it have radius of R1. From here to here, it have radius of R2, and from nucleus to the outermost orbit, there will be a distance of R3. Right? So now this is our nucleus. These are the orbits. These are called the orbits which are close to the nucleus, and this is the outermost orbit which is located far from the nucleus. If you draw the energy band diagram, so like this. So here, this is the edge of the nucleus. Okay, this is the edge of the nucleus. Okay, this is the edge of the nucleus. If you draw this, so since we have 3 orbits, we are drawing 3 lines here. So this is our first energy level, which is located in the distance of R1. This is the second energy level, which is located in the distance R2. This is third energy level, which is located in the distance R3. So now you can estimate the nucleus and the orbits and the corresponding energy band diagrams. So now, generally, the electrons can move in the orbits here. Generally, the electrons will move in their own orbits. But the electrons cannot travel from one to another orbits. Means there won't be any travel in intermediate orbits from one to another. Okay. So, for example, if you want to move an electron from the, let's say, orbit number 1 to the orbit number 2, there should be a requirement of additional energy to be fed. So if you feed additional energy to it, so the electrons in the orbit number 1 will excite towards the orbit number 2. That means the electron will be lifted to a higher energy level. This is energy level, lower energy level. This is higher energy level. So this electron will be lifted from the orbit number 1 to orbit number 2. But after, this is not like a long-lasting method. After a certain time, this electron will try to fall down to its original orbit, that is orbit number 1. While it is returning back, when it is happened, it gives back the acquired energy in the form of either heat or light or any other forms. Okay. So the electrons which are existing in the first orbit will have lower energy levels because of higher attraction and repulsion force from the nucleus. That means the electrons which are existing in the first orbit will be tightly bonded with the nucleus. The electrons which are existing in the outermost orbit will have higher energy levels because of lower attraction from the nucleus, because loosely bond with the nucleus. Okay. So now you might have understood this. What is meant by energy level and what could be the intensity of energy levels based on the. Now let us discuss about shell. So as we know, atom consists of a nucleus, atoms, and etc. If you see, an atom may have n number of orbits that we have discussed earlier. A grouping of such orbits are collectively called as shell. If I take a particular atom, it will have a fixed number of shells. So shell will have both fixed number of electrons in a fixed number of orbits, okay, at orbits. Okay, you might have understood now. So now, what is the next topic? Your next topic will be atomic number. Atomic structure. The next topic will be atomic structure. Okay. Now, before that, in your previous classes, you might have studied about modern periodic table, right? Where you have seen atomic numbers of elements, etc. Right? Now, let us consider first a few elements with their corresponding atomic numbers. Shall I write here? Yeah. So H, hydrogen, He, helium, Li, lithium, B, beryllium, B, boron, C, carbon, N, nitrogen, O, oxygen, F, fluorine, N, neon, right? Neon. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these are the first 10 elements that we have in our modern periodic table, right? So for every atom, if you take, atom should be electrically neutralized. For that, every atom will have equal number of electrons and equal number of protons. That means number of electrons in an atom is equal to number of protons in an atom. So simply we can say, by looking into their atomic numbers, we can estimate the number of electrons in a particular atom. For example, hydrogen element will have 1 electron, helium element will have 2 electrons, lithium element will have 3 electrons, and so on. Now, main thing is, if you have to understand the atomic structure of an atom, we should understand what is meant by shell that we have discussed earlier. Then we should understand what is the relationship between number of shells and maximum number of electrons that we can able to accommodate in each shell. So for that, the simple formula is 2n square, where n indicates number of shells. Okay, 2n square indicates maximum number of electrons that we can able to accommodate, that we can accommodate in each shell. This is a very important point we should understand. Okay. Now let us take an example and let us see how to relate it. Okay. For example, let n equal to 1. N equal to 1 means how many shells are there? Number of shells equal to 1. Now we have to estimate in one shell how many maximum number of electrons that we can able to accommodate. For that, substitute maximum number of electrons that we can able to accommodate is 2n square, which is equal to 2 into 1 square, which is equal to 2. That means in one cell, that is in first shell or first orbit, we can able maximum two number of electrons can be accommodated. Okay. Similarly, if you take n equal to 2, for example, if you take n equal to 2, so maximum number of electrons is 2n square, right? This is equal to 2 into 2 square, that is 8. In the second shell, we can able to accommodate 8 number of electrons. Maximum number of electrons that we can able to accommodate on second orbital shell is about 8 electrons. Now we can estimate the atomic structure of an element or atom. Now see, now I am considering helium. Now let us draw the atomic structure for helium. Okay, so generally at the center of the atom, what is present? It will positive charge, that is proton. Since it has one proton, it will have one neutron. Sorry, one electron. Okay, so this is your proton. So I have drawn only one shell. You know why? So I have substituted n equal to 1. I got maximum number of electrons of about 2. So this particular thing will be applied only the elements which have maximum atomic weight till 2 only. Okay. So this is applicable only for helium. That's why if you write the if you draw the atomic structure of the helium, so proton will be located at the center of the atom, and if you draw the orbital shell, so electron will be presented somewhere here. So one proton, one electron. Now the atom is electrically neutralized. Now similarly, you take the helium. So helium will have 2 electrons. See the atomic number, it has 2. So draw one shell here. How many number of electrons we can able to accommodate in first shell? Only 2. Because for shell number 1, that is n equal to 1, we obtain total number of maximum electrons of 2, right? So now we can able to accommodate 2 electrons here. One is here, one is here. Now, first one is for hydrogen, second one is for helium. Can we estimate the atomic structure for lithium now? Yes, it is simple, because if you know the number of shells and their corresponding maximum number of electrons, it is easy. So for lithium, so you'll have 3 protons. Sorry. Okay. So this is your proton. Okay. Now I'm trying my best to use this platform, but okay. So I have drawn one shell here. So maximum number of electrons that I can able to accommodate only 2, right? Because for n equal to 1, I have obtained 2. But I should accommodate one more electron. For that, I can draw shell number 2. For shell number 2, you can give one electron here. The total number of electrons for lithium is 3 protons and 3 electrons. So in first shell, you can able to accommodate 2. That's why I have accommodated only 2 electrons. Third electron will be pushed to the orbit number 2. That is shell number 2. Okay. So now, so this is what, all about atomic structure. Okay. Before that, before the next topic, we should understand some basic terminologies. Okay. What are the basic terminologies? So before that, let us recall the energy levels of each orbit. So if you take a atomic structure here, let's say with a simple nucleus and the orbits over here, the electrons existing in the orbit which is close to the nucleus will have lower energy, and the electrons which are existing in the outermost orbit will have higher energy. What we have discussed here, right? So now there are three different terminals we have to understand. Number one, valence electrons. Valence electrons. Number two, atomic number. Number three, atomic weight. Okay. Now, what is meant by valence electron?
The electron is
electrons
present
which are existing in the outermost orbit are called valence electrons. The electrons which are existing in the outermost orbit are called valence electrons. These electrons will have higher energy levels because these particular electrons will have lower coupling with nucleus. They are not tightly coupled with the nucleus, so that the electrons which are existing in the outermost orbit of an atom will have higher energy. Those electrons are called valence electrons. So generally, since they have highest energy levels, so these electrons can be useful in determining the electrical and chemical characteristics of any atom. Okay, and that particular shell is called valence shell. That particular shell is called valence shell. Now let us see what is meant by atomic number. So we have discussed it before. Still, let us recall it. So generally, atomic number is denoted by capital Z. Okay. So the total number of electrons in any atom is called an atomic number. Okay, which is equal to the total number of protons existing in the atom. So the total number of electrons should be equal to total number of protons for electrical neutralization of any atom. Okay. So what about the atomic weight? Atomic weight is very easy. So if you take any atom, at the nucleus, as we discussed at starting of the class, it will have protons and neutrons, right? So the atomic weight can be approximately equal to the total number of protons plus the total number of neutrons that are existing at the nucleus of a atom is called atomic weight. For instance, if you take silicon material, for that, what is the atomic number? 14, right? So for silicon material, we'll have 14 electrons, 14 protons, 14 neutrons. If that is the case, can't we expect the atomic weight of the silicon material now? Yes, we can able to estimate it because atomic weight of any atom equal to P plus 1. How many number of protons are there for silicon? 14. Neutrons 14. So total 28. So the atomic weight of the silicon is 28. Like that we can estimate the atomic numbers and atomic weights of an atom. Okay. Next topic is energy band. This is one of the important topics in your course. Energy band. If you take a single isolated atom, electron in any orbit possesses definite energy. But if you combine that atom into a crystal, there should be definitely an interaction between two atoms. So now, if you take a result of that, electrons in a particular orbit of one atom will have slightly different energy levels from the same electrons in the same orbit of adjacent atom. Why it happens? Because two electrons cannot see the same pattern of surrounding charges. Okay. So since there will be billions of electrons in an orbit, slightly with different energy levels will form a band. Okay. Now, if we can see the energy band diagram representation, then you may able to understand. Okay. I have drawn one band here. This should be slightly bigger than this. This should be even bigger than this. Okay. This is our first band. This is our second band. This is a third band, which is called valence band. Okay. This is called valence band. Okay, now simply we can estimate the size of the lower band, that is band number 1. It may be because of low energy levels and less number of electrons. We can consider it any case. This particular energy level, this particular band is located in a distance of R1, as we discussed before. This is located in R2, is located in R3. Like this, we can estimate the energy band diagrams based on the energies of electrons possessing in each band. Okay, this is all about introduction about semiconductor physics and some basic terminologies. Now we have to see the differentiations between conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. Okay, next topic: conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. Okay, generally, so just now we have discussed about matter and all. So all this matter is can be considered as material, right? Material can be classified into 3 types. Okay, if we take a material or matter or material, it can be classified into 3 parts: solids, liquids, and gases. So since our topic is all about semiconductor physics, and in this particular course in BED, so we are going to concentrate on solids, not the liquids and gases. We are going to focus only on solids. Based on the electrical properties of solids or materials, so these can be classified into 3 parts. What are they? Conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. Okay. Now let us see all these 3 points and their differentiations. Okay. If you go everywhere, you should recall about the energy band diagrams and their energy intensities, which are located on the respective orbits. If you see, the electrons which are occupied the lower energy bands are of no use in determining their electrical properties of materials. That means, if you take an orbit, this is, let's say, first orbit, this is your second orbit, and so on. Let us consider this is our outermost orbit. So the electrons which are existing in the first orbit will have lower energy, due to which these are of no use or no importance in determining the electrical parameters of the material. So the electrons which are existing in the outermost orbit will have higher energy levels, which plays a vital role in determining the electrical parameters of the material. So in this context, now we should talk about 2 important bands. Okay, so they are number 1, valence band, number 2, conduction band. We'll say bands, number of bands are 2 initially. One is valence band, number 2 conduction band. These two bands generally are separated by another region called forbidden energy gap, which is also called as forbidden band. Forbidden band. Okay. Generally, what is meant by valence band? Valence band can be defined as a range of energy possessed by valence electrons. What is meant by conduction band? Range of energies possessed by conduction band electrons. These things are important for your exam. Okay. Concentrate on every single thing. Okay. Generally, in valence band, the electrons may not be completely filled. It might be either completely filled or partially filled. For example, if you take inert gases, what are the inert gases that we have? He, helium, Ne, neon, Ar, argon, Ar, krypton, xenon, right? These are the few inert gases. Only in case of inert gases, the valence band is full. If you take other materials, the valence valve will be partially filled. Okay, that is all about valence band. If you take conduction band, in conduction band, so the electrons which are existing in the outermost orbit, which are called valence electrons, will get detached from the atom and it will enter into the material and make the conduction process. Okay, so those electrons will get detached and it will cause a flow of electrons through the material. These electrons are called free electrons, which are responsible for conduction. So, since it is responsible for conduction, these electrons are called conduction electrons. So now you understood what is meant by valence band, what is meant by conduction band, what is meant by forbidden band, and how they are happening. Now, shall we estimate all these points in case of conductors, insulators, and semiconductors? Now, these three topics are very important for your quiz exam. Please be concentrate. Okay. Now let us start with our conductor. Okay. So generally, a conductor is a material, as you know, which easily allow the flow of electric current, right? So conductor allows the flow of electric current. Okay. So the best conductors, what are the best conductors that we have? Copper, silver, gold, and aluminum, right? These are the first few conductors, okay, which are capable to flow of current, right? Generally, these in these particular materials, the valence electrons will detach from the outermost orbit and make the flow of electrons very easily. So, if you see the energy band diagram, okay, energy band diagram of conductor, it will have valence band here. It will have conduction band here. But in middle of these two, we'll have forbidden band. If you talk about the conductor, so the conduction band and the valence bands are overlapped. There won't be any forbidden band for conductors. Okay. So the valence band will vary from, I will take another color, then we'll estimate. So valence band will vary from here to here, and conduction band will vary from here to here. Means, so there will be overlapping between conduction band and valence band. There won't be any forbidden band for conductors. Generally, conductors, copper wires and all, we generally use it for electrical wiring, house wiring, etc. Right? So copper is a good conductor, which is well-known thing. So now, if you see the insulators, you might have understood now. So easy flow of electrons will create electric current. Okay, that will happen only on conductors. You understood the examples? You understood the energy band diagram? Now let us move to insulators. Insulators. Insulators is another interesting topic. Generally, insulator is also a material which does not conduct electric current. In such materials, valence electrons will be tightly bound to the atoms. So if you see the energy band diagram, okay, let us draw the energy band diagram for insulator. See the forbidden band, it is very, very wide, right? This is your forbidden band. These are valence band and these are conduction band. So now the valence band is very, very full, and combination, if you see the combination of all these bands, the valence band will be very, very full, but whereas in case of conduction band is almost empty, because there won't be any electrons flow in the insulators because it opposes the flow of current. If you see the energy gap between valence band and the conduction band, so it will be approximately equal to 6 electronic volts. These points are very important, ma. Please concentrate. So the energy gap between valence band and the conduction band of an insulator is approximately 6 electron volts. Okay. Why we use insulators? We use insulators to protect us from the electric shocks or something else. Okay. So insulators are very, very useful. Okay. If you want to make electrons to flow from valence band to the conduction band, so we should apply high electric field to the atom. Then only a flow will happen from valence band to the conduction band in case of insulators. Now, what is the third topic? Semiconductor. Now you can estimate the definition of a semiconductor. Very good conduction of electrons or electric current is called conductor. A poor conduction of flow of current is called insulator. A semiconductor may have the properties of both of them. The properties of the semiconductor will lie between conductors and insulators. If you take a pure semiconductor, it might be either good conductor or a good insulator. So what are the examples for semiconductors? Silicon and germanium, right?
Germanium.
Germanium. Now, if you see the energy band diagram of a semiconductor, so now, so it is like in between both of them, right? In between insulator and the conductor, right? So you can easily estimate the energy band diagram. So the forbidden gap will be very small in case of semiconductor. So this is our valence band and this is our conduction band. Okay, this is our conduction band, this is our valence band. This is the energy band diagrams. Very, very, very important energy band diagrams. So please concentrate. Now, if you see the energy gaps of silicon at 0 degree Kelvin, so what could be the forbidden energy gap at 0 degree Kelvin for silicon? It is 1.2 electron volt. Whereas in case of germanium, 0.785 electron volt. So for silicon, it is 1.2 electron volt. For germanium, it is 0.78 electron volt. So you please try to concentrate all these 3 points. You might have understood the difference of conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. If you talk about the differences of semiconductors in other case, so let us, in terms of valence electrons, also we can able to differentiate all these 3 parameters. Like let's say we will write conductor here, conductors. Next, insulators. Here we will write semiconductors. If we talk the differences about all these 3 points in terms of valence electrons, if valence electrons are less than 4, then those materials are called conductors. If the valence electrons are going more than 4, then those materials are called insulators. If the valence electrons are equal to 4, those are semiconductor material. You may ask me, why only 4? Why not 5 or 6? So I will explain with a small example here. Okay. Now, if you take a semiconductor, one example for semiconductor, could you please tell me? That is silicon. What is the atomic number for silicon? 14. We have discussed, 14. Right? Generally, all elements will try to reach inert state. Okay. In every element of a modern periodic table, will try to reach inert state. We have different types of inert gases, right? Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, etc. So these inert gases are also called as noble gases now. So now let us write their atomic numbers. For this, 2. For neon, 10. For argon, 18. For krypton, 36. For xenon, 54. For radon, it's 86. Okay. My system looks very, very sensitive. For next class onwards, I will try to rectify this issue for sure. Okay. Now, let us estimate why only 4 should be considered while we are comparing the materials. Now, to reach inert state, a material or element should either accept the electrons or it should donate the electrons. But it should try to reach the state of inert. These are the inert gases. They will try to reach this mode. For example, silicon will have 14, right? So we should see what is the closest inert gases which is close to the silicon. So for silicon, we have 14. So if you see here, so 10 is the closest element, neon inert gas, which is close to the chosen example. So now you subtract neon gas out of 10. So if you see here, if you do minus, it will give 4. That means if silicon want to reach inert state, it has to donate 4 electrons out of this number. That means number 4 has been achieved. This can be compared with the closest inert gas which is given in the table. If you take germanium is another semiconductor material. What is the atomic number? Atomic number for germanium is 32. Now you compare this 32 number of any of these numbers which are given in the inert gases list. 36, right? 36 is the closest number. 18 is also one of the closest number, but it is very far from the number that we have chosen here. So the difference between these two are very, very big. So 32 is quite closer to the 36. Now, in silicon case, it has donated 4 electrons to reach inert state, whereas in case of germanium, we have to add 4 more electrons to reach 36. That means krypton ka stage. That means it is accepting 4 electrons. This is donating 4 electrons to reach inert mode. So if we now take another example, I will take another pen color here for differentiation. So as we discussed, let us take aluminum conductor. We will take a conductor example. Aluminum is a conductor, right? What is atomic number? 13. 13 is very close to neon. So if we do minus 10, so we'll get 3. Okay. So for semiconductor device, if you see, these are the valence electrons, ma. These are the valence electrons. So the total number of electrons are 4. As we discussed, if the total number of electrons are equal to 4, then it will be a semiconductor. If the total number of free electrons are less than 4, it will be a conductor. If you can estimate similarly for conductor, insulator. Where is that table? So just now we have discussed if I think I have deleted it. If the number of valence electrons are less than 4, then it is a conductor. If it is equal to 4, it is a semiconductor. If it is more than 4, it is an insulator. So now it is all about your today's lecture. So I hope I have conveyed the information properly. If I miss anything, please let me know. Now I'm going to devote my time for clarification of your doubts. Feel free to ask me. Okay, you can activate your mic and get clear with your doubts. Sorry, Ma, if my voice is getting break, it might happen due to network. I will make sure I will try to avoid this issue from next class onwards. I'll be awarding 2 minutes for you, 2 to 3 minutes for your questionnaire session. You can ask me the questions after this. So please be conscious. Exactly at 2:45, I'm going to assign a quiz examination for you. Please check your mails or classroom. Check your classrooms. Go there.
Madam, at
Finish your
2:45
quiz assignment
We have another class.
for particular class.
We have another
Very,
class,
very important mark quiz examination. Similarly, for every single session, you'll be assigned with this examination. Go to your classroom. After some time, I will assign it. It will activate exactly at after some about 2:58 something. So I'll go on assign. For both A section and B section, I have assigned some quiz exams. You go there and so you please go there and start writing your exam. Okay, I'm assigning it now. Please go there and finish your exam.
Ma'am, it another
It takes only 10 minutes. Please go there and assign it.
class, ma'am.
I have initiated the assignment. You please go there and finish your assignment quickly. Once your assignment is done, you can relieve from the meeting. So, Okay, thank you. Finish your exam. I'm closing the meeting now. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you. Somebody have message here. Let me clarify. Okay. Okay, ma. Thank you. Please try to be online on time from next class onwards so that we can able to finish our particular syllabus within the time. Okay. Thank you for your presence. Please finish your quiz exam. Thank you. I'm closing the session.